Bringing Heritage Alive. This is the story of Burbage Heritage Group's mission to use the 100th commemoration of World War I and as an engagement across the whole community and between age groups. The Village War Memorial is symbolic of the village, standing central to the community, but over the years people had passed the memorial without giving it much thought. This image was taken from the unveiling of the War Memorial in February 1921 and would be used again as the cover of a booklet produced to commemorate the ending of the war in 2018. My name is Anne Crabtree and I'm Secretary at Burbage Heritage Group. The group began in December 2000. Its objective to promote an appreciation of the history, architecture, landscape and wildlife in Burbage Village, and we aim to encourage interest in the heritage through a regular programme of meetings, walks and exhibitions. It is our strong belief that the local heritage of a parish is what makes it special and sets it apart from other areas, and in capturing that heritage and engaging with the community, establishing facts and passing that knowledge to the local children is of particular importance. During 2013, it became clear that the 100th anniversary of the First World War would be an event the Heritage Group would feature in coming years. Of course, our group was not alone in this endeavour. We decided we would build upon the national commemorative activities in our own way. The guiding principles of our thoughts were engagement with children through the 4 village schools, engagement with the community through Burbage Parish Council, youth organisations and other village groups, and the respectful commemoration of those villagers who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our future, painting as full a picture of the individual and his family as possible. Our approach as a heritage group would be to provide the central coordinating role for a range of activities which draw in different groups, each carving out jigsaw pieces which would come together over the next 5 years to leave a legacy for the community to engage with, enjoy and cherish. The Village War Memorial was at the centre of our research. Unveiled in February 1921, inscribed were the names of 54 men who died during the conflict in the service of their country. A further 6 men's names were added after this event to remember those who had died as a result of injuries sustained during the war. Those 60 men were the subject of our initial investigations. Who were they? Where did they live and went to school? Were they married with a family? And how were they employed before their lives were cut short so suddenly? Our research began with an exhibition in August 2014, timed to coincide with the start of the war 100 years before. Many residents came forward with information and photographs about their ancestors. But this event quickly established questions about why some men's names were not on the memorial, and perhaps more fatalities from the village had not been recorded. Indeed, when we came to commemorate the soldiers, the first fatality was Lancer Samuel Caldwell, killed in September 2014, but without any local recognition. 3 men died during those opening months of the war. Burbage Heritage Group utilised records available from different sources, previously published information, to begin our research into the lives of the soldiers named on the memorial. During this period, we were also able to make more use of internet resources. A further 5 deaths would occur in 1915. The Hinckley Times archive was an invaluable source of newspaper cuttings of the period. The number of deaths increased as the years unfurled. 14 lives lost in 1916. And again in 1917. We were fortunate to receive many family memories for the biographers. By the time the armistice had been announced in November 1918, a further 23 men had lost their lives that year. Sadly, 5 more men would die after the armistice from injuries received during the war. £6,000 of funding had been awarded from the Heritage Lottery Fund to engage with schools in the village. The grant provided transport to Hinckley Museum for 350 pupils, enabled engaging with a historic reenactor for life in the trenches, storytelling about animals in wartime for younger pupils, reenacting that first Christmas truce in 1914 at the high school, and providing the materials for a puppy trail to be created where every pupil and staff member at the school made their own poppy and is a permanent legacy. At the end of June 2015, a 2-day exhibition took place where all the schools involved displayed their creative written and artwork. Parents and friends visited to see the children's year-long achievements. A concert by guides and rangers followed the pattern of one put on by children at the National School in 1916 to raise funds for the Soldiers' Comfort Fund. Extracts from the school logbooks recounted what life was like for pupils at that time, including the fact that in the autumn of 1918, £1,000 of blackberries had been picked by half-term.
Most children attended the National School, built next to St Catherine's Church in 1871 by the generous donation of Lady Cooper, the Lord of the Manor. There was another smaller school attached to the Wesleyan Chapel in Windsor Street. Education was compulsory between the ages of 5 and 13, but attendance was very poor. Quote from the school logbook. February the 13th, 1914. Very poor school this week on account of sickness. Boys unable to go into the school garden on account of wet weather. October the 16th, 1914. Very poor attendance on account of measles. December the 11th, 1914. Attendance very poor on account of mumps. School closed early on account of the epidemic. Men were enlisting in great numbers from Hinckley, Burbage and the surrounding villages. Many of the factories had territorial regiments attached to them because joining the regiment was seen as a good recreational occupation, getting together with mates to play at being soldiers.
The grant also covered the cost of upgrading the Memorial Rose Garden with 30 new roses and a display board telling the story of how the memorial came to be erected, and this was unveiled by descendants of men listed on the memorial. Throughout these years, children from the primary schools attended the War Memorial when possible to light a candle and receive a biography of a soldier. The schools now have biographies of all the soldiers to add to their local history study portfolio.
Today, Burbage Heritage Group, and I'm pleased to say Percy Malkin's great nephew's here to remember Percy. He died 100 years ago today in France. He was Private Percy Malkin. He's one of about 5 Burbage men who received the military medal. Percy grew up in Burbage. He was the eldest of the 6 surviving children of Ernest and Eliza Malkin, and he was born on the 2nd of March 1893. At the age of 3, he started his education at the Burbage National School on Hinckley Road in August 1896.
The final soldier to be remembered on the 4th of November 2018 was Private Leslie Shilton, who died on the same day as the poet Wilfred Owen. Children from Sketchley Hill School recited part of his poem, Dulce et decorum est. The 4 soldiers identified without recognition were inscribed onto the War Memorial through the generosity of Burbage Co-op Funeral Care, in time for the names to be formally unveiled at the 100th Anniversary Remembrance Sunday. For the 100th Anniversary commemoration, the group's chairman, Sylvia Whitworth, approached the parish council with the idea to place a blue plaque on the homes where the fallen soldiers had lived, and 32 blue plaques are now a further legacy. With money from a Leicestershire County Council Shire grant, we were able to purchase a pull-up banner portraying a map showing the location of the blue plaques and provide a soldier's biography for each household where a plaque is sited. Burbage Parish Council installed a display board to capture these locations and also the other village war memorials that we had identified, mainly from the churches, and including one that had lain hidden for over 40 years. The 100th anniversary of the 1918 armistice was a very special event. During the day, a number of activities occurred, beginning with the Remembrance Parade and service at the War Memorial. The 4 newly inscribed names were unveiled by Tom Tunnicliffe, a relative of Gunner Sidney Tunnicliffe, helped by David Heppingstall, the letter carver, and Andy Ely from the Burbage Co-op Funeral Care Company. The scouts and guides are shown here before they placed named crosses of all the fallen soldiers around the base of the memorial.
And we remember Private Douglas Atkin, Private Joseph Aldridge, Private James Allen, awarded the Military Medal, Private Jack Alsop, Private John Arnold, Private John Asbury, Private Charles Barnes, Private Frank Barnes, Sapper Horace Bates, Private Bob Bates,
Private Charles Bradbury, Private Walter Bradshaw, Private Francis Burton, Sergeant Samuel Caldwell, Private Thomas Carrington, Private Cyril Chambers, Private Daniel Charles, Private Horace Charles, Corporal Joseph Cook, Private Arthur Cook,
Lance Corporal Thomas Cox, Second Lieutenant Arthur Dudley, Private Frank Florian, Sapper Ernest Foxton, Private Sidney Foxton, Private Maurice Gamble, Private Arthur Gent, Private James Grimes, Lance Corporal Thomas Hamlet, Private Jack Hill,
Private Walter Hinton, Private Harry James, Private Ernest Kelsey, Private Reuben Kelsey, Private Albert Kennel, Lance Corporal George Kirby, Guardsman William Letts, Private Percy Malkin, Military Medal, Private James Moore, Sergeant George Musson,
Private Sidney Musson, Private William Neal, Private John Newcomb, Private Fred Newman, Private Albert Paul, Private Joseph Paul, Second Lieutenant Harold Pilgrim, Private David Robertson, Private Ben Robinson, Second Lieutenant William Robinson,
Private Bernard Rowe, Private George Rowley, Private George Scott, Private Leslie Shilton, Gunner Albert Smith, Lance Corporal Albert Smith, Lance Corporal Percy Starkey, Corporal Joseph Towers, Gunner Sidney Tunnicliffe, Private William Webster, Private Horace Wormleighton, Lance Corporal Wilfred Wormleighton, Private Sidney Worthington, Private Frederick Wiles.
This image shows the huge volume of people who attended the event. Later that afternoon, a concert was held by Burbage Community Choir, with songs and readings appropriate to the commemoration. In the evening, along with thousands of others around the country, a beacon was lit following a service at the Pentecostal church. One of the common sights for our soldiers would have been a village pump. Water wasn't piped into the village until late in 1915, and a suggestion from Parish Councillor Chris Ashton for a replica pump to be placed across from St Catherine's Church was well received. A replica was unveiled in early 2019, generously supported by G. Seller Funeral Directors. Alongside is one of several new seats located around the village, which were installed by the parish council during these commemorative years. The bells rang out once more. Our final commemoration was to recreate the Peace Day Parade, tree planting and tea party that took place in July 1919. As schools were on holiday in July, our celebrations took place on the 28th of June 2019, 100 years since the signing of the peace treaty at Versailles. Together with teachers, parents and friends, over 100 children representing the primary schools began their walk from Burbage Juniors, gathering pupils from Sketchley Hill Primary and Burbage Infants en route, stopping where possible to view the soldiers' plaques, and again at Moat House Care Home, where the parade was greeted by the residents. The walk finished at Pew's Paddock, where an open-air service was held in front of the World War I commemorative lamppost that is used annually for the primary school's remembrance service. Returning to their schools, tree stakes were installed, as it wasn't the right time of year to plant trees. It was in the autumn of 2019 that the trees were planted. Oak trees at Burbage Infants and Burbage Junior School, and a liquid amber at Sketchley Hill Primary, generously donated by Carol Trigg, Richard Fleming and Paul Williams in remembrance of their relatives. Burbage Parish Council paid for permanent tree plaques, and these were unveiled in early 2020. A grant from Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council's Voluntary Community Service enabled our tea party for elderly residents to be held at Hereford Way Community Centre. Hosted by Burbage, Darby and Joan, and in the presence of the Mayor, Councillor Linda Hodgkin, and Burbage Parish Council's Chairman, Councillor Paul Williams. We close as we started, with the guides singing as our soldiers would have sung as they marched to war.